Hey, what's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing good today. One of the reasons I started this channel is I wanted to explore biblical concepts and how the text of the Bible relates to like what I was always led to believe the Bible said. I think if you don't read the Bible, it's easy to kind of make assumptions on what's in it and what it's about. And I know for me, at least, when I actually read the text, I noticed some pretty stark differences and some things that I kind of had to square up on my own. For example, I always was led to believe that Jesus was basically a peace-loving hippie. Um, but there are things that you read in the New Testament that kind of are not necessarily in line with that concept. One of them being when Jesus said, "I have not come to bring peace, but to bring a sword." I will set son against father, daughter against mother, and people at variance with those of their own household, something to that effect. And what he's talking about is those who follow me um, will probably not be necessarily at peace with those who don't. And this is going to cause division amongst people's households and so on and so forth. Um, Another thing that he said when they were going into the Garden of Gethsemane, he was talking to his disciples. He said, "Look, last time I told you guys to go out and preach the gospel, I told you don't take anything with you. Don't take any money, don't take any food. Just go and know that you'll be taken care of. But now I tell you, take a sword. And if you don't have one, sell your cloak and buy a sword." And the disciples replied and said, "Master, we have two swords." And Christ said, "Well, that's enough." And then shortly after that, so they go into the Garden of Gethsemane, excuse me, and Christ is praying, and Judas leads the high priest to him. And immediately after that, Peter takes out his sword, slices off the ear of the high priest's servant. And obviously we know the story. Christ heals it and tells him to put away his sword. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. But I can't help but think that Peter was basically reacting to what Christ told him a few minutes ago. And Christ knew that the prophecy had to be fulfilled, and it wasn't Peter's time. So he healed the ear of the high priest's servant, and they kind of moved on. Another thing that led me to believe that he may not be the peace-loving hippie that everybody said he was is when he goes into the temple. He makes a whip out of cord and starts whipping people and kicking over tables, and it seems like a very violent event. And it's righteous indignation, but he is not being peaceful in that process. Um, in looking into this and trying to think a lot about this, I came to the verse in John where Christ says basically, "I'm the good shepherd. The thieves and the robbers will come to the gate, but my sheep will be at peace. My sheep will not even know that they're there." And I can't help but think, how much violence does a shepherd have to perpetrate on the thieves and robbers outside the gate for the sheep inside to not even know that they're there? Um, I think the idea that Christ is here to bring peace is to bring peace for his flock. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to bring peace at the end of a sword. I mean, anybody who's read Revelations knows how violent it gets towards the end, and that's prophecy. That's stuff that hasn't happened yet. But when you look at actually what Christ said and what he did, and who he was, I think that you can't help but think that he is standing outside the gates fighting this battle for us so that his sheep and his flock can be at peace inside the gates. They said that he is the new high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek has a very short bit of information on him in the Old Testament. Basically, he's known as the King of Peace, and he blessed Abraham. When did he bless Abraham? When Abraham came back from slaughtering 5 kings and their armies. He was literally on his way back from what the Bible calls the slaughter. So you can imagine how many people were killed. And the King of Peace comes to Abraham and gives him wine and gives him bread and blesses him. And then Abraham gives him a tenth of his goods. And this is the high priest in which Christ is made in the order of. Levitical priesthood goes away and Christ is the new high priest. But the King of Peace was celebrating with Abraham after he slaughtered these armies. And, it's, I mean, you see this in Revelations too. There's a good army that has to slaughter the evil in order for God's flock and God's people to be at peace. And I think it's an interesting concept, one. It's something to be thankful for, too. And it's also a good reason to read the Bible because I know for me, um, I became much more interested the more I realized that things in the Bible are not necessarily what the world says they are. So, anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them down low. I thank you guys again for spending this time with me and hope to catch you on the next one.